All right, so I want to talk to you about the an Angus Reid poll that came out today. My eyes are going to veer a little bit, so I'm not ignoring you. I'm just looking at the data that I have here on my computer. And what
Okay.
came out from Angus Reid today was that the percentage, of Canadians saying they're proud to be Canadian has dropped from 78% to 34%. And that I feel bad saying this, but I'm not shocked. I'm
Yeah.
not surprised. Like I'm one of those people that I feel like I'm wrong for being in Canada. I feel even though my you could like I we you know we had to because of CBC. I had to go back and we went all the way back through my family tree to go to the time they started keeping records. My mom's side of the family is all Canadian. Like it just says born here or whatever. So
Yeah.
really, I have nowhere else to go. I mean, this is my home, but I don't feel like I belong. And really, with what Trudeau is doing, which we talked about a while ago, what Trudeau is doing on the international stage and with especially with our biggest trading partners in the United States, I am embarrassed to be Canadian sometimes.
Yeah, it's really concerning. We want people to be citizens. We want them to engage in politics. We want them to be proud of their country. And when numbers drop like this, sometimes it's a reflection of what's happening in people's lives. There's a lot of people in this country that are struggling right now, and
Mhm.
it's hard to be patriotic. Kind of when you look out, times are tough. You're really struggling, maybe you're just not happy with how things are going in this country. That's perfectly fair. We live in a democracy, but it's a warning to government. People should be proud of this country. They should have a government that they feel is going to make their lives better, make it better for their children. And if that's not happening, I can't really blame them for not, feeling hugely patriotic, not feeling hugely in love with the country right now.
I appreciate that angle. But you're right. It should be a wake up call to the government because it does seem to be. I mean, if it was 51%, 52%, I wouldn't feel that bad. But when it's
Yeah.
38 or 34%, I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look. Sorry, I can't believe I forgot that quickly. But that seems like that's a dramatic change in Canadian pride. I mean, when the World Juniors are on, everyone will be cheering for Canada and wearing a shirt. But even that's kind of dissipated, right? You don't see a lot of Canadian pride anymore. It's something even when I was a kid, right? You go into the United States and everywhere you look, somebody had an American flag.
Yeah.
Now you go into Canada, you see all kinds of other flags, but you don't see a lot of Canadian flags. Is that part of the problem too?
I think that you see patriotism like at Canada Day celebrations. You look out at the crowds there; they're massively multi-ethnic. Like you see, clearly immigrant families, second
Yeah.
generation immigrants. They're hugely patriotic people celebrating this country, grateful to this country as well. I mean, I think one of the things we might be seeing is that the Liberal Party has been in government for 9 years. They have a very different view of Canadian identity and Canadian patriotism than previous governments, previous conservative, but also previous liberal governments, like under Prime Minister Chrétien. And I think some of the elements of that, we've heard Justin Trudeau talk about Canada as being a post-national state, and some of his views. I personally don't find those views very compelling. I mean, Canada has an identity, and it's an identity that includes all sorts of different people. And I think that maybe what we're seeing now is that people just don't find that vision of Canada, that view of Canadian identity, very compelling. And so, if you don't find it convincing or compelling, then you're not going to be patriotic about Canada in the meantime. I think we need to kind of rediscover and I think through some aspects of Canadian identity in the years to come when maybe Justin Trudeau isn't prime minister anymore.
Well, I hope so. But I mean, during the last few years, Royce, you have to admit, I mean, we've seen even here in Manitoba, large organizations or community where they used to have a Canada Day party don't call it Canada Day anymore. They don't refer to it as Canada Day. That's gotta hurt. I mean, that to me is not right. We seem to be in a society that's allowing that to happen and accepting the fact that maybe Canada was bad and we shouldn't recognize it as And I know I'm wrong. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but that's the feeling that's out there.
Yeah, yeah, we should be realistic about history of our country, realistic about mistakes. Doesn't mean we shouldn't celebrate this country and its accomplishments and what it provides us, which is a safe, orderly home and a country that's admirable. I think that probably in the future we'll get back to normal Canada Day celebrations. We've been in a kind of interesting moment in time over the last few
Mm.
years. Uh, but yeah, I don't want to be one of these people that pretends that Canada is a perfect country. It has a perfect history. It is totally unblemished. That's not
No.
true. But there's an awful lot here to be proud of. And I think in the years to come, we'll get different kinds of leadership, different visions of this country and its identity. And I think we'll get back to that kind of old-fashioned Liberal Party of Canada. It used to be one of the most patriotic uh, organizations in Canada. Remember Jean Chrétien,
Hmm.
Canada's the greatest country in the world. I think we eventually move back to that, that this was a moment in time that we're going to move away from.
Yeah, and I hope so. And I agree. I mean, we're nobody has a perfect history, but I'm proud of the fact that in Canada we've grown past the mistakes we've made. Things that we may have done in the 1600s or 1800s, 19, early 1900s and stuff. We've grown as a country. We've matured as a country. We understand more, and it seemed like we hit a wall. And now that doesn't matter, that it's all the bad stuff that everybody wants to talk about. I want to ask you from your perspective as a political science professor, what does this say to potential investors in Canada when they see numbers like this? Because it's going to make international news. So what does that say to people outside of Canada about Canada that maybe don't know about what's going on inside, but they see a number like that? Like Americans are going to see that, they're going to find it online or whatever, or somebody's going to tweet it out.
Yeah,
Maybe Donald
yeah,
Trump will, like, not even Canadians like being Canadian anymore or whatever, right? So
yeah.
what is that going to tell these investors or potential investors or people that were thinking about coming to Canada?
Yeah, or people that were thinking about emigrating to Canada
Yeah.
might read that news and be quite surprised by it. I think in general, Canadians tend to overestimate how much other people in the world think about us and notice these kinds of things. But to the extent that they would see this, very low levels of patriotism in Canada, it's surprising. Canada is a peaceful country. It's ordered. There's lots of social mobility. You can create a great life for yourself, although that's being constrained in recent years. Life has gotten harder. And I think people would be surprised by that. Canada's a great place. It's a great place to call home, and we're
Hmm.
blessed to be here. And if those aren't reflected in those in the numbers and the way that people are feeling, then there's something should be done. And to some degree, maybe you and I might disagree on this. I think government has an important role to play
Hmm.
in terms of creating identity, nurturing identity, and encouraging those sorts of those that expression and those views of Canada. And they kind of failed in the last few years. I think government needs to get back to a more compelling vision of Canada, what it means to be Canadian, and we'd probably see those numbers increase as a result, I think.
So I don't think you're going to like this, and it's fair to disagree with me, but doesn't that start back in our schools?
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
that isn't
like,
that where we start teaching that about the pride to have? I mean, I'm always proud of the fact that Canada was fighting Hitler before the United States was.
yeah,
We were the first ones
absolutely.
on the beach, right?
Absolutely, and I've long thought that we need more and better civics education in schools in K to 12 schools. There's just not enough. Like there's stuff there, and I think the teachers do the best they can with the curriculum that they have there. But I teach political science. A lot of people get to the university, they don't know a whole lot about Canadian government, Canadian politics. I'm not complaining. I'm happy to have them in my class. I'm happy to have the first crack at it. But yeah, no, to the extent that people aren't taking those classes or going to university, we do need to invest more effort into civics education, help people become better citizens, more engaged citizens, even before they enter the workforce. And I think that would have great outcomes for Canada.
Well, it's nice to hear, and I think you're absolutely right. But I will tell you that when I first saw the poll, the very first thing I wanted to do was put my money where my mouth is and go out and buy a flagpole for my house and put up a Canadian flag. That was the first thing that hit me. I just thought that we can't have that. We have to be proud of who we are. We have to be proud of what we've accomplished. We have to acknowledge our faults, yes, but we have to be proud that we went beyond them, that we've taken steps to get better every year. With every issue, we've taken steps to get better. We've been a welcoming country. Americans used to put their Canadian flag on backpacks when they went over to Europe because they got treated better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot to be proud of, and it's not just hockey in this country. A lot of inventions, a lot of penicillin and all kinds of things. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I'm glad you and I are having the discussion, and if nothing else, I'm glad that the poll was done and has come out. I really am,
Yeah.
because maybe we need to start having this discussion again, not about how bad things were, not about what happened in the past. I listened to Ben Mulrooney. He has a new talk show, and I didn't think it was going to be, I mean, Canadian Idol, entertainment guy. But he had some people on talking about, John A. Macdonald and really what he accomplished. Like back in his time, we spent more on helping Canadians than any other prime minister ever has. When you compare it to dollar for dollar in the time
Hmm.
change, right? And so, but yeah, okay, maybe some things were done wrong, but back then they didn't know, but we've learned and we've gotten better at it. So, anyways, I don't want to get on a big soapbox about it. It was an emotional time when I saw it. I have to be quite honest, because I thought
Oh,
it's
really?
yeah, like I just felt so bad. I felt horrible because I mean I did some time in politics. I've been in the media most of my life, well, all of my life for pretty much. I've had a few other things that I've done, um, but but I felt terrible. I thought, what is wrong with our country that we don't love it so much? Like, why aren't we very proud of it? Like, I mean, when you let in, like, we open our doors to immigration, and we should be proud of that. And you look at the different cities. Yeah, it really hit me hard. I was shocked. I was really shocked.
It's interesting about the flagpole you mentioned. A while ago, there was a story about Wab Kinew when he went to Europe, and he met some of the descendants of people that were liberated by American soldiers in World War II. And he came back to Manitoba, and one of the first things he said he did was buy a big Canadian flag and put it up in front of his house. If that's the next generation of leadership, if that's what's coming up, relatively new premier, that will address the problem. I got to be honest, I read that story. I thought, hey, I want to put up a maple leaf in front of my house. I thought it was inspirational.
Yeah, and I long for the day that you drive down a street and you see 10 or 15 flags, flying from a house.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot to be. I mean, people can joke about being the 51st state, and there's probably a lot of advantages if you want to go to Florida, and your dollar's the
Yeah.
same,
Yeah.
or if you want to go to university down there or whatever, there's probably lots of advantages. But hey, we're Canadian. I was born here. This is my home, and I think maybe that's why it hit me. Is I just thought it's just sad. And I hope the younger generation brings back that pride in Canada. And I hope you're right. I hope a change in government brings back that pride, because his response to the Justin Trudeau's response to the tariff and some other things, and his comments towards the president elect, like him or not, he's the president elect. He won with an overwhelming number of votes. He is going to be the president. We do have to work with him, but we can be proud of who we are and what we bring to the table. We are a member of the
Yeah.
G7. Let's be proud of that. We are a member of NATO, so maybe we need to do more. Let's do more of that. But to see that number in the low 30s, wow. You have some work to do as a professor. You make sure every one of them coming out of there is proud to be Canadian, and that they're talking about the virtues of our country and standing up for it.
I think we'll see it. I honestly think we'll see a change. I don't think I'm being naive. I think that we'll see this turn around. And we might have a new generation of political leadership in this country that takes a very different view than the current group. And yeah, I think we'll see a change, honestly.
Not soon enough, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for your time again, and for all your wisdom. And thank you for
Oh,
allowing me to get on my soapbox about this. It was
no,
just I was itching to talk to you about it today. I just thought, oh, I was so mad. So
no,
I'm glad we were able to have the talk.
that's great. I enjoyed hearing from you.
Okay, talk to you next
All
week.
right. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye bye.